Why, hello. Hello, everyone. It's Mary Cronert here for the Living Room Community Art Studio. Welcome to our Wednesday pop-up art studio. Thanks for being here, folks. I'm definitely enjoying my coffee today. So thank you so much to everyone who has been joining us for our Wednesday live streams. Who would have thunk it? 7 months ago now? We started doing these and they've been really enjoyable for me and I hope for you. And I'm constantly just astonished about how many people join us during the live stream, how many people chat with us. Hello, Denise. Oh, so great to see you. Welcome. Welcome to the live stream. So grateful for everyone who tunes in, whether you're watching it live and participating in the chat or just listening and watching at home. Hey, Emmett. Nice to see you. Welcome, welcome. There might be some new faces joining us today. I just finished a fantastic class with Danny Crosby's third year fine arts students in their community collaboration class. I invited a whole bunch of folks to join us. So if you are one of those folks who is joining our live stream today, that's amazing. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Oh, Wendy. Hi, Wendy. How are you doing? It's so great to see people joining the chat. But if you feel more comfortable just hanging back and not doing any of that, that's totally fine as well. Just know that if you're watching and not chatting, I may not know you're here because of how I'm seeing and experiencing this live stream. I don't always see the folks who are just watching. So if there are folks out there in our chat who feel like welcoming people as they join in the live stream, please do. Help make them feel at home, just like you would if you were at the studio itself. And just a reminder for everyone about safe space. We do our best to keep this space comfortable, welcoming. That doesn't mean we can't have moments of rupture and education along the way. Definitely keep me accountable. I love learning new things about our community and about the people who are our community. But we do ask that while you're here, you respect the same things that we ask of you when you're in the actual physical studio space. So that's being encouraging and supportive of one another, including being supportive and encouraging of yourself. If your inner critic is being really loud today, let us know. And if we need to, we can talk to it, see what it wants. If it has nothing constructive to say, I'll delete it. I remember B suggesting that as a virtual thing we could do in this platform. We'll just delete it. Or I can squish it out, throw it out the window. What can I do? There's lots of things we can do with that inner critic. And don't worry, it'll be back. They usually are. But every once in a while, we do learn something from those inner critics. So that's why we like to remind you that it's okay that you have them. I have a whole choir of them. They're not necessarily bad, but they aren't always helpful. How about that? I think that's a good way to describe them. Oh, Nikki, so good to see you. Welcome to the studio. What's the next thing? Oh, we do ask that if people are joining us here in the virtual space, that they respect everyone's journey, which can include harm reduction journeys or recovery journeys. So if you have been using or drinking today, we ask that you come back to the live stream on another day when you haven't been. And that way, we can understand one another more effectively, we can communicate with one another clearly, and we can just be, generally more supportive of one another in this virtual space, just as we are in the physical spaces when we work with one another in person. And then there's something else. Oh, Denise. Yes, definitely enjoy this space as much as you can. So if that's a cup of tea and a nice bundling up in a warm blanket, that's lovely. Interesting. You want me? Well, let's see. Are you saying you'll bundle me up in a warm blanket? I'm not sure. Have to seek some clarification on that. And there's one more thing in our safe space that I always forget. I've been mixing it up lately because I'm not delivering it just as frequently as I used to. So I've gone over the safety, using, drinking, being supportive of one another and encouraging. Let's see. Oh, yes. Of course, if anything makes you feel uncomfortable, weird, whatever it might be, let me know. Especially if it's something that I've done to create that experience for you. I'd like to learn about what I'm doing. And if there's a way I can be a better human, learning how to do things differently or change up what I'm doing, I'm more than happy to try. And hopefully I'll get better at it over time. And eventually it won't be an issue for anyone, including you. So if there are things that I'm doing that are making you feel weird, or perhaps things that people are doing in the chat as they participate in this, please don't feel afraid to let me know. you can bring it up here if you feel comfortable doing so, or you can message me afterwards, send me an email, and then we can explore how we can change that so we can human a little bit better. And let's see. Oh, Emmett is working on your first Celtic cable scarf. Fabulous. So far, having a lot of fun and some grumbling when fixing the mistakes. I'm hoping to finish this for your mom for Christmas. Oh, how beautiful. Oh, for the inner critic. Oh, sorry. Now I'm jumping to the next thought. So Emmett, that sounds fantastic. I'm a very tense knitter. Anyone who's ever seen me try to knit, I start out really nice and relaxed, and my gauge is pretty consistent. Then as I get focused and fixated, it tends to get tighter and tighter and tighter. And I end up with some kind of triangle if I'm making a scarf. But that doesn't mean I shouldn't revisit it and try it again. I think that's something to add to my list of lovely to-do things this cold season that we're heading into. And Denise with it's offering the inner critic a cup of tea and bundling them up in a warm blanket. What a lovely way to engage with those more difficult or challenging parts of yourself. I love that. Engaging with them with compassion and just acknowledging them and saying, it's okay, I hear ya. Let's try something different. What do you need? A cup of tea? A warm blanket? I love that. That's fantastic. And Patrick, hello, Patrick. Nice. Thank you so much for joining us. It's been a while since I've seen you in the chat. Oh, lovely. How are you doing where you're at? How are things? I know things have been interesting south of the border, and I'm hoping you're okay. I'm hoping all our friends who are watching from other places other than Oshawa are doing okay. I'm hoping everyone's feeling safe, feeling healthy, and feeling like they can connect and reach out for support if they need to. That's the most important thing. Knowing that you have options and feeling like knowing that you can reach out when you need it. Yeah? Well, I'm so happy everybody's here. Yeah, you can tell I've already had a couple of cups of coffee today, haven't you? Can tell, right? Yeah? I'm going to try and just calm myself down. So I think today I'm going to start with another slow drawing exercise, perhaps. Oh, Patrick says doing okay. A little overcast there. Oh, you know what? Gray skies, they're okay. We can deal with them, can't we? And how am I doing? Patrick asks. Well, I'm okay. It's been an interesting month. For those of you who maybe haven't checked in on the Facebook page for a while or have seen the news on YouTube, we are closing the studio space at 149 Simcoe Street South. So that's been playing on my mind a little bit these past couple of weeks, knowing that that was a choice we had to make, looking, seeking, trying to find other things, finally realizing that that was the best thing for everyone, the best thing for our organization, but also the best thing for community engagement as well. It might seem counterintuitive, but I feel that if we let that studio space go and spend the next while focusing on our virtual studio space and other projects that will allow us to engage in person, then we'll actually have more opportunities and options available to us. Does that make sense? If anyone else does have any other questions, this Friday, which I think is, for those of you who are watching afterwards, October 16th, this Friday evening, I'll be hosting a live stream right here on Facebook again at 7 p.m. where you can ask any questions you might have about the process we're going through, about what the future looks like, about how our operations might be impacted or affected. I know folks have a lot of different feelings about that space. It's been a special physical place for a lot of people in the community. And yeah, we're really sad to see it go. I'm really sad to see it go. But I know that there will be a new space in the future. Could look like a lot of different things. And this virtual space has provided a lot of comfort and opportunities that I wouldn't have ever have foreseen, if not for the pandemic. And Denise acknowledging, yes, makes sense. Sounds like it was a tough decision to make, though. It was. Yeah, a lot of procrastinating, a lot of mulling, a lot of seeking and trying to figure things out. But you know what? It's the one that makes the most sense. And thank you. Patrick's reminding me that coffee is my friend. Absolutely. Oh, Gilbert, it's so nice to see you. Welcome. And Shelley, welcome as well. So Shelley and Gilbert joining the stream. So good to see you here. Thanks for participating in the chat. And Gilbert, I'm glad. Yeah, the studio, it's complicated. These times are complicated though, and it's actually enabled me to think about, reflect upon what complicated means. And who knows, you might be seeing a little bit of that coming out in the artwork today. So without further ado, let's get making. Yeah, I've been thinking about what change means, what complicated looks like, why sometimes we're so scared of complicated things, why, well, why those moments when we, oh, hello, notes. I think those are board meeting notes. I sit on the board of a theater company, so if you want to talk complicated, a traveling touring theater company, it has not been easy for theater companies these days. Oh yes, Shelley saying, wish I could get some supplies, but I'm unable due to transportation. We'll see what we can do, Shelley. Let's figure something out. I know there are a lot of folks who can't make it out to the, I'm cautiously calling it an event. It's not really an event because I don't want to, it's one of those odd things. I want people to come and pick up art supplies. Let me backtrack for a bit. This Saturday, October 17th, from 12 to 3 p.m. at the studio space, we are having an art pickup day. So that means if you have works in progress that were at the studio when we had to close and kind of lock everything up for the pandemic, you're more than welcome to pick them up. And actually, Gilbert, I might have a sketchbook of yours there, now that I'm thinking about it. Is it possible that you could have left a sketchbook there? Anyways, Gilbert was one of our fantastic student placements that we had working with us. And it's always such a lovely thing, actually, sorting through, like packing away all the materials. I'm finding everyone's volunteer name tags. So that's another thing that you can pick up this Saturday if you like. Although, don't worry, I'm going to be holding on to all those name tags. They represent something really special for me, for every person that's come through the studio, given their time, their energy, their heart. Those are difficult things to just get rid of. So I'll be holding on to those and taking them with us. And who knows, you may need that volunteer name tag again sometime in the future, right? But yes, Shelley, so this Saturday we're having an art pickup day for works in progress to be picked up, any artwork that was left there. We will also be sharing some of the supplies that we have on hand. So, and as I'm talking, I'm just going to take some time and breathe, and I'm going to start doodling. Is that okay? I'm going to do some slaw drawing. Oh, lovely. Yes, and some people are looking at this Saturday as an opportunity to pick up a memento. Gilbert was just commenting, be sure to get some mementos from the living room. And that's okay too. I'm thinking a few folks might come by just to say hello and just to see someone's face, a familiar face. As we move into the winter seasons here in Oshawa, things might get colder. We don't know if we might have more restrictions in Durham region like they have in some of the bigger cities. I think it's okay to anticipate that those changes might be coming and how they might impact you. That's okay. They don't have to be big bad changes. I think if we know a little bit more what things look like, what things feel like now that we've been through it, so we can anticipate and set things in motion for ourselves, prepare, anticipate those changes so that we can make the most of this situation. And if part of that for you is picking up some art supplies from the studio so that you can make art with us or make art on your own, that's lovely. So you can join us at the studio this Saturday. Wear a mask. Remember to keep socially distant from everybody, so the 2 meters apart unless you're in one another's bubble. And we'll have little like sort of pre-prepared baggies of basic supplies like paper, maybe some stickers that you can create your own stickers with, just some odds and ends that might be helpful for people in making art. And then if you have specific requests, that would be the time to ask as well. So if you'd like some markers or some oil pastels, things that we won't necessarily be taking into storage with us. We'd prefer them to be used. And if you can use them, please, by all means, do. And that, of course, all those items on a first come, first serve kind of basis. But we don't want people to overcrowd either. So take your time. And like if Shelley, you think that you might not be able to make it down this Saturday, that's okay too. Keep us in mind. Maybe send me an email and let me know what you're looking for. And if possible, we have, from time to time this past 6-7 months, put together art kits that we've dropped off for people. Now we can't do that every day or even every week, depending on what our weeks look like. And certainly this October is going to be pretty busy by the looks of it. But if we have materials that will help enrich your life a little bit in the months ahead, let us know. And then we'll arrange a time to share them. Hey, Crystal, how are you? Oh my goodness, so good to see you. And of course, when I say see, it's seeing people in the chat. But for me, that counts. Yes, so there's different ways we can do things. I think having this event this Saturday is one way we can begin sharing the supplies. Because if there's stuff that's just going to go into storage and not get used, I'd rather have people have it and use it. Especially things like paint. We have lots of all those little bottles of paint and tubes of paint that we have in that paint tower at the studio. We'll be sharing those with everyone. So again, first come, first serve. If it's there, if it's something that you'd like, you can kind of go through and select your colors. And again, this is not the end. It's just a change. And it's okay. Change is okay. It's okay when change is complicated too. That's definitely something I've had to, am finding peace with. Finding peace with complicated things. I think there's lots of folks out there who have more lived in experience in that than I do. But it's always interesting to go through that process yourself. And I'm lucky. It's reminded me how lucky I am in so many ways. And Crystal doing well. That's good. I'm glad to hear. I'm glad to hear. Oh, Shelley you lost her glasses. Oh, yeah, that sounds like a very tricky month. Hey, Laura. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Oh, I'll see you Saturday. Oh, fantastic. Fantastic. Actually, Laura, I might call you, see if you can help me distribute stuff. I don't know. Laura's one of our fantastic volunteers. So if you haven't met Laura before, well, you probably have, one way or another. Laura's one of those awesome folks out there. Everyone's awesome. Who am I kidding? Haven't met someone through the studio that I haven't liked, ever. Yeah, no, just hasn't happened yet. And I've been thinking, I think that's a gift of being curious. And maybe a gift about being an actor. I don't know if there's any other folks out there who are actors, who are watching or listening. Something about that world. Sort of like you begin to appreciate weirdness in a whole other way. And when part of your job or your passion is to examine how people engage, why they engage the way they do, what led to those decisions being made or those impulses being carried out. And you kind of put yourself in those shoes and do your best to imagine what it would be like to be them. It opens up lots of different worlds for you. And instead of being afraid of strange, wonderful, weird, intense things, you become curious. And that's important, to be curious. Oh, Emmett, try to come out Saturday. I'd love to say hi. Yeah, I suspect there might be quite a few people who are coming out to say hi. So just, take care of yourself. Be safe. Know that we'll be doing our best to help everyone else be safe. So we might have some folks helping manage, reminding people to stand 2 meters apart. It's so hard, especially with community. There's that impulse. I remember the first time I saw one of my placement students who I'd only known virtually during the pandemic. They were volunteering down the road and they passed by the studio for the first time and knocked on the door, and I happened to be in there sorting stuff out. And my first impulse on seeing them and really meeting them for the first time, such a strange thing to comprehend, my first impulse was to hug them. And that's not good. It's not good now, and it's never good without consent. Yeah, that's one of my areas where sometimes I get into trouble. But it's such a strange thing how we've all come to know one another in interesting and new ways. And a virtual relationship with someone can feel just as intimate as the same kind of relationship might feel in the studio. Sometimes maybe even more. Nikki loving the swirls and the doodles. And yes, on that note of complicated things, Nikki saying maybe the gift of acceptance and great tolerance. And that comes from experiencing complicated stuff and leaning into it, exploring it, and being curious, I think, too. It helps inform so many of, well, it just gives pause for thought, if nothing else. If nothing else. And Nikki, you had to answer a call, but what are the color sticks? Conte crayons. So it's been a long time since I've worked with chalk pastels. And I'm going to be honest with you today, I wasn't sure what I was going to work on. I was really tempted to make a marionette doll with masking tape and crunched up newspaper and shopping bag, like plastic shopping bag links for arms for joints. And up to like only a couple of minutes before this, I wasn't quite sure what I was going to work on. And then I wanted to paint. I wanted to get into some acrylic painting and messiness and just explore kind of my take on contemporary art and concept through shape and form and color. Exploring that idea of stuff. That's another thing, obviously, that's been on my brain as I'm packing up the studio. Stuff, the story of our stuff. And I think there's a great documentary out there called that as well, The Story of Stuff. If someone has a link to that, you're welcome to put it in the chat. And then from all of that, I realized I didn't quite feel like getting messy today. It didn't feel like it would capture something. And then I guess I just decided I wanted to let myself do whatever I wanted to do. And at the last moment, Lottie, the marionette idea sounds amazing. Okay, I will do that in a future live stream, I promise. Or at least I'll start it. Maybe that's also a good workshop to do in our workshop rooms on Facebook. Fun, simple, you don't need fancy materials. Okay, feedback received. Hey Lottie, how's it going? So chalk pastels they're kind of a mix between, they're a little bit messy, but also more control. I like their transparency. I wanted to explore building color. And just in response to Nikki's question as well, or comments about complicated and difficult things, Nikki has definitely inspired this process, because all the swirly things that I'm doing right now, or something that I like, or I've come to understand, can also be called slow drawing, which is interesting, right? Slow drawing or slow doodling. Just that world of creativity that touches upon everything from Zentangle to contour drawing, blind contour drawing, memory contour drawing. Just letting yourself fill a page with line and color, or trusting your hand. I find it very soothing. But Nikki is just, whenever I watch Nikki work, it often starts in that place, kind of like lines, drawings, color, doodling, and it's beautiful. So I thought today, what happens if I just experiment with line? Maybe I think I'll play with the chalk pastels to add color. Maybe I'll use paint. There's another community artist out there, Mercury Ferguson, fantastic artist. And I saw them the other day when I was out in community. And Mercury is one of those people who loves working with all different kinds of mediums. I've never seen Mercury shy away from experimenting with different things. So Mercury might work with acrylic paint, and then chalk pastels, then maybe some gold leaf, and then maybe embed some found objects into that piece and use some modeling paste to build up around it. If there's no modeling paste available, Mercury might use other things like glue. If there's no chalk pastels on hand, Mercury might use makeup or nail polish or whatever's there, whatever's available for creative use. They can add a kind of texture or, I don't know, glow to the process. So definitely channeling a bit of that as well. And when I do pieces like this, it reminds me of that something I remember as a child seeing, the kind of drawing or animation we used to see coming out of Quebec and kind of the National Film Board style, and then maybe even the UK when I think of Monty Python and all that weird and wonderful doodling that became a part of their storytelling. It all counts, right? And I love dipping into it. I love just letting it do whatever it wants to do. And it's a great entry point if you're thinking that you're stressed out or you don't know what to do or where to start. Start with a doodle. You never know where it might take you. So from there, maybe I'll move on to a waterproof pen. I'll put that aside for now. Maybe Now these cards, we had a fabulous donation at the studio. I think it might have been another legacy gift, and it happened during the pandemic while we were closed. So yes, we are still accepting donations, as odd as that might sound, because we can use all of this. And yes, Wendy, the camera is having focus issues, especially with that fine line drawing. I am sorry. It's going in and out of focus, and if it's definitely bothering my eyes, so I apologize for that. We'll take a look at it and see, because it was having that issue last week too. So we'll see what we can do. Hopefully it'll clear up once I start using something that isn't a fine line marker. So I'll make short work of this here. But yeah, this lovely paper came from, I think it was a printer that had just, closed up shop. And we received all sorts of lovely odds and ends. Things that you wouldn't necessarily find or have access to from an art store or a craft store. I think it was Danny Crosby who helped us with this donation, actually, who hooked us up. And there were so many weird and wonderful things. We have lots of envelopes of all different sizes. And I'm working in my mind now, well, not right now, but I'm hoping to put together some workshop kits in the new year with envelopes so that we can make envelope journals, and exploring and experimenting with the different kinds of creative things you can do with envelopes as your canvas, right? Oh, yes. So Emmett has some cotton yarn love to donate. That would be amazing. That, when we can put together kits for people in the new year, or if we, have opportunities to drop off supplies for folks who may need them, that kind of sharing of supplies, that sharing economy is so incredibly valuable. Maybe more important now than ever before, particularly because, well, I think when the pandemic happened, there was also this response. And that reminds Laura Emmett. Laura needs some orange yarn, but acrylic. So if anybody out there has acrylic orange yarn, Laura will make good use of it. If you don't need it anymore, contact Laura. And do we have any orange acrylic yarn? I'm just going through in my head our yarn inventory that we did. Maybe I can have a look too, depending on when you need it. But yeah, the sharing economy, I think, took, its own hit during the pandemic. And for those of you who are watching from outside Durham region or outside Canada, I don't know if it was the same where you were at, but I think there was this sudden fear about touching anything or taking anything into your home that maybe had been previously used and, you know, shared by other people. And of course, art hives, we thrive on that sharing economy. We love those gently used, pre-loved art supplies, all the bits and pieces, all the wonderful scraps or things that may not have any value to you in the current state, the place where you're at with your projects, but for other folks, of course, invaluable, right? So there was a lot of nervousness around that, I think, and people were concerned, I think is one way of putting it. I don't know, you know, the fear of perhaps germs or bacteria, who knows? But I think we've come around again, and it's not as bad as it once was. And I know there are thrift stores taking donations again. I'm definitely going out and thrifting whenever it's safe to do so. Nothing like a good thrift find. But it definitely, yeah, I think it made all of us take pause and consider what we have and what we shared, and perhaps even question why we collect stuff in the first place. Oh, thank you, Emmett. I will message you. Looks like a Micron. The pen? Yes. So if someone's asking about the pen, it's a Micron 02 archival ink, which is always nice. Although, you know, for me, I'm not so fussed about that. But what I like about the Micron is that it is, and there are other pens out there too. This isn't an ad for Micron, but they're waterproof. So if I decided that I wanted to add watercolor to this, it wouldn't bleed. Now, sometimes I love the effect that, you know, a simple pen like this, just like a fine liner from Bic or something of that nature, I love the fact that it bleeds if I add water to it. And that you can get really cool unintentional effects from, kind of just inviting the art to take over and create its own effect. And that's a lovely creative process between you and the piece that you're working on. Oh, maybe I'll add a little bit more in with this then too. Let's see. Why not? Let's experiment and see what happens. Now what am I going to do? Point where I stare at something. Stare, 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 stare. Decide what I'm going to do. Let's see what happens if I do this. So I'm going to start with some white chalk, which on the cream background doesn't necessarily pop up, but if I add other colors to that after, it'll be there as a base. And I might decide to add some more, mix my mediums here. See what happens. I think the white chalk, when I get over to the other papers there, I think I'll have some fun with that. And Nikki says, it's very interesting that the marker is waterproof. You can create very fine details with that. Yes. And I really do enjoy, you know, when the waterproof marker, a fine line, adding pigment to it afterwards. It gives you room to play. And I really do love seeing the details. It's just another way to highlight things, if you like, or give form or structure. Oh, that's a good question, Nikki. So question from Nikki for everyone. Who loves watching artists create? I think that might be quite a few of us out there. I know I do. One of the questions we had with, one of the things we discussed in Danny Crosby's community collaboration class, we were talking about live streaming. We were talking about platforms and ways of connecting with people, building your audience, you know, online workshops and periods where you can't necessarily connect with people in person. Because those of you who are familiar, there might be some of you out there who've been to some of our community collaboration days with Danny. It was a class, so Danny's class would actually come directly into the living room. Oh, look, people. So Wendy, Denise, yeah, people love watching artists create. I think there's something about being let into someone else's process, no matter what it is that, you know, that they're doing. It's not necessarily instructional. Sometimes it's a way of seeing into someone's mind, I suppose. When you're involved and let into their process. That's another way of getting to know them a little bit. Nikki's saying, I love watching your creative techniques. That's very kind of you. I love watching yours as well. I feel like sometimes cautious about calling them techniques because I feel like all I'm doing really is playing. But I suppose play is a technique as well. But yes, so Danny's community collaboration class would come into the living room. They'd be there every other Wednesday throughout the months of September, October, leading into early November. And they'd learn about, you know, what community engagement. They'd learn about, you know, kind of creating in unusual spaces, because a lot of visual artists, I mean, maybe that's a generalization, but I think it's a fair, I don't know, visual artists out there, let me know what you think. I think the inclination is to create on our own. Not many of us start out by seeking collaborations or even sharing our work with other people in that same way. I think creating can be, and this is interesting, it kind of goes back to what Nikki was asking, that sense of a solitary process. It's you in your space doing things your own way. So when students come into the living room or are asked to sort of share what they do with others in a more, I won't use the word vulnerable, but available way, to make themselves available to people, it can be quite weird or quite scary, depending on where you're at, right? It's not the easiest of things to do to share your process with other people. And I think part of that is also, you know, just worried about making mistakes or perhaps looking silly. There's a kind of magic that comes with having creative control over what you share with people. It's on your terms, when and how you share it, when you let people into your process. That's interesting. Sometimes you're also letting go, releasing that control you have over what you share and how you share it. So I think there's a secret. Sometimes artists and people worry about sharing their secrets of their trade, of their craft. And all of that is okay. That's understandable. Completely understandable. Artists, especially if, professional artists have so little control sometimes. It can feel like you have so not a lot of control over how things go for you. So you control what you can, and sometimes that is process and what you share of your process. So I understand that. Not every artist wants to share what they do. Oh, where's my painter's rag when I need it? I'm just going to wipe my hands on my jeans. That's what they're there for, right? Okay, now what am I going to do here? one thing I do not have handy with me today is a blender pen or a blender stick, which when working in graphite or chalk pastel can be really handy to have. Just to soften edges. I think I do have an eraser here, so I might try a little removal technique. Do I want that? What do I want there? What do I want there? Maybe I'll add a little bit of that in. Blender pens also give you a little bit more control over what you blend. But fingers work just fine too. So this, I think, is why some folks aren't fond of working with oil pastels, because your hands can get a little bit messy. And sometimes you get chalk where you weren't thinking you'd get chalk. So if it's light enough, you can just use an eraser to remove chalk from areas you do not want chalk. And this might be another activity we do in the future as well. Another one of our amazing volunteers, Jay, did a workshop at the studio one time about, I can't remember what it's called, where you cover a page in a darker pastel or a charcoal, and then use an eraser to remove, remove the chalk pastel to create your image. That's what I'm trying to say. Yeah, that's how it goes. And that is a beautiful process all on its own as well. So I think I'll be doing that one day. There's so many different things we can do. And again, if folks out there have ideas or things they'd like to see me try, I'm more than welcome to try it. Please let me know. We could even experiment with a day where you tell me what to do and I do it here. That would be interesting, wouldn't it? That would be fun. Aha, I love that, Emmett. So Emmett's saying, I find it easier to call my early in-progress works experiment. And that's a lovely way of looking at it, a lovely way of sharing, of feeling like helping yourself feel more comfortable about sharing your process with people or what things look like when they're in process. But definitely so important. And I don't think it takes anything away from what the final product might be. I think any artist that I love their work or want to collect their work, even if I can't afford to collect their work, I think knowing what their process is like and being able to, when they open that window up and let me into that process, it makes me appreciate their final works more. And Denise saying, oh yes, excellent, see? There you go, Emmett. Denise saying, calling everything an experiment is a really good frame of reference, as you can't fail an experiment. You can only learn. Still in the process of incorporating this, I heard it from Claire Dubois of Tree Sisters. Oh, Tree Sisters is is it an organization? Is that the right way to describe it? I think I've heard of them before. I think it was you who told me about them, actually. And Emmett says that's exactly why I love calling it that. Yeah, I think if only we could look at everything that way to a certain extent. I mean, I don't know if I want my surgeon calling the surgery I'm taking an experiment, but there are certain things perhaps that need to be done in a specific way. However, I do think there's room to let ourselves welcome that process. And if it's easier to welcome it as an experiment where you're learning, you're discovering, then how beautiful is that, right? And I think if you make space for that in your own life, no matter where you're at with whatever you're working on, any kind of creative self-expression, whether it's writing or music or painting, poetry, spoken word performance. I know in the rehearsal process, that's the best way to look at rehearsals, as experiments. You're trying things out. And you might feel really passionately about an approach or a choice you're making. And you try it and you realize that it doesn't work at all. But you wouldn't have discovered it. You wouldn't have found that out if you hadn't tried it. And oftentimes when you try something, it clearly points to the way that you do want to do something. It clearly points to the way that will work for you in that moment. And the best rehearsal processes are, fostered in that environment of experiment, of play, because that's what play really is. It's experimenting. It's experimenting. And when we lose that quality of curiosity and create, the ability to take a creative risk without really, worrying about it, that's a sad moment. It's a sad day. And it happens. I think with arts, especially those industries that are industries where you may not have as much time as you like, perhaps. I think in film, for example, or TV, you're brought in to do a very specific job. You may not even have a rehearsal process. They expect you to just deliver, give it a go. And you might have a few opportunities to try new things, but that's not exactly the same as exploring or experimenting. So love that. Love that so much. Thank you, Emmett, for introducing it. And how does it change our response to what we create if we view it as an exploration? That's a question I'll turn over to you. If it is an experiment, like for example this is today, how does that change the way I engage with it? How does that change the way I engage with myself? Right? Does it make it easier? Does it make it easier to try things? Does it make it easier to let things go, to move on from certain things that I've tried? Oh, Carlos. Hello, Carlos. Welcome. Thank you. Carlos is saying, looking beautiful, akin to a peacock feather. Loving this. Thanks for creating. Oh, thank you for being here, Carlos. How you doing? And what are you working on today? I think about that. I was thinking about you this morning when working with the students, because I was thinking about digital artwork and how that's an area, that's an art form, a modality that I'm not specific with. And that's an interesting thing to consider in this conversation as well, about experimenting. And if we view creation as a process of exploration and experimenting, how does that change our relationship with what we create, how we create, with how we engage with what we create, all of those questions. And digital is a really interesting format. Does it make it easier? Does digital artwork, does creating in a digital format make it easier because, and this is maybe an assumption on my part, does it make it easier to reverse, to erase? I'm not sure. Let's try this. Oh, there's the bleeding. Yes. See, I really do like that effect sometimes. Or do we like the physical process of creation and exploring, and because it helps us, there's something in living with the things you're not so fond of, isn't there? There's something to that. And Emmett saying, it makes it easier to share and receive input from others for you. Oh, great. And it makes me feel like I can't make a mistake. Just happy accidents. Oh, hello, Bob Ross. That's really, really, really interesting. Why do you think it makes it easier to share and receive input from others? Because I think that can be one of the most difficult thing for any creator to do, is to share what you're creating with other people. That is, again, that feeling of availability, transparency, vulnerability, whatever you want to call it at that point. So it's interesting. I'd love to know why. Hey, Becky. Oh, it's good to see you too. How are you? How's your fam doing? And Carlos saying, yeah, digital art for me is so new. I've no idea what I'm doing with it, and oddly okay with that. I've always used pencil and paper, but digital for me is allowing me easier access to pick it up as I go. And see more, please. And okay, interesting. So I've been trying sketching something, leaving it for a bit and going back to it. Kind of like doing digital and physical. It sometimes depends on where my head is at too. Carlos, that's interesting too. So you go back and forth. You feel, correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like you'll feel in any moment you have a choice, an option, like working with any tool you might have, any artistic tool you have on hand. And knowing that you have them there gives you a kind of freedom, a kind of choice, that lovely, delicious freedom. It's interesting to hear that you take time with the digital as well. That's really interesting. My concern would be that I'd be tempted to, if I didn't like something on digital, just to erase it right away. Is that something you had to kind of teach yourself out of in that process? And what does Lottie say? Oh, Lottie. Lottie has been working on glass album covers using picture frames, acrylic paint markers, cocktail sticks, the paint pens were too thick, and printouts. Lottie, may we see this? If you want. Speaking of just sharing and how vulnerable it is, and there's people like me who suddenly say, can I see it? Can I see it? I want to see it. I would love to see what you're describing there. Sounds a little magical to me. I love that. I love working with glass. Oh, maybe that's something else I can do. All right. Isn't it funny? Opening up all these possibilities. Thanks, folks. What an inspiring day. And when this dries, maybe I'll go back to using the chalks again. Just set it aside and let it be for a little bit. Because when I'm working with you folks, I really have no idea what I'm doing. You know that, right? Talking about this process of creating virtually and live streaming, it also highlights the things that my brain, like I can only focus on so much. So if I want to engage in the chat, I have to, like when I'm working on things, I choose things that I don't necessarily need to be fully immersed in. I give myself that freedom to just let myself play and experiment and explore. And the delicious thing that comes along with that is, folks, I don't know what I'm doing. No idea. Just trying things out. And Becky, okay, awesome. Sophie is at Cambrian doing animation. Yay! I send my greetings right back to Sophie. Yay! And Emmett, going back to the digital art question, Emmett's been doing digital art for a while now. Sometimes what I like to do is make line art and challenge my friends to color it for you. What a beautiful gift. So that's a fantastic way to share your work too. Engage friends, family, whoever in collaborations. Yeah, I can appreciate that. I love that. And I think actually Danny Crosby's class, one of the things they'll be doing is sharing coloring pages with everyone through our Facebook page. So you will be able to have that experience for yourselves and collaborate on, finishing or adding to these pages that they offer up, which is really nice. And Lottie saying, currently having a hair color change. Once it's washed out, I'll pop the results and the tutorial on the show and tell post. Yes, please. This, I think calls back to a few streams ago when the conversation about hair color and I think nail polish too, as creative expression, as art form, self as art. What we do when we want to mix things up, change things up, how we present ourselves to the world and all of that. And hair color was a really important part of that. And one of those things we can control when we perhaps feel like there's not a whole lot else in our life that we can control. One way or another, you can control your appearance if you like, right? Even if it's just drawing a tattoo on yourself with a Sharpie. Is that safe? Safety first. Maybe? Look it up, folks. Safety first. Don't do as I say. Look it up. Safety first. But interesting to know what color your hair is going to be. No, actually, don't tell me. Let's have it be a surprise. I want to be surprised. is interesting hearing people discuss the digital versus physical. Well, I guess digital is physical as well. So what are we talking about when we talk about the differences between digital art and the digital creative process versus what, an analog approach? A pen, pencil on paper, paint on paper, whatever kind of thing that is. What is it that we're talking about there? And why do people get so caught up in that? All right. Okay. So Carlos with a comment, but there is a trigger warning here for folks. It involves a bit of personal loss and a link to art. So for those of you who might be struggling with loss or grief, just know that you can take a break from this part. I'll take a breath. You just turn the volume down or look away for a moment, but I'm going to share it because so many of the beautiful things in our lives come from loss. And as the studio leaves me, that's one thing I'm reflecting on as well. What change looks like when you lose something or someone in your life that you love, that you care about very, very much. So self-care. So Carlos says, yeah, the digital lets me keep it all in one easy space. I am lazy sometimes. I don't know, Carlos. I don't know about that. So Carlos is lazy sometimes. Shock. So I found I was limiting myself by not getting all the equipment out, etc. Fair enough. I can relate to that. I'm sure a lot of other folks out there can as well. So with digital, I can just pick it up and go with it if I feel the mood for it. I don't delete any of the mistakes. Awesome. Personally, I leave them and come back to them. And this sounds cheesy, but I've made some of my proudest pieces from my mistakes. So many artists share that same process of discovery through their work. Mistakes hold information, don't they? There's something about the way we react to them that, I'll come back to that in a moment. And Carlos was okay with sharing this, but digital was easier to share with my dad back in the UK. And although he loved my physical art, I could involve him in the process, literally. Oh, wow. As I was creating and doing digital, it also allowed me to share some immediate art with him that was made for him in his days before passing. So digital has been really good to explore and connect to. But Carlos is still so for physical art as well. That's a really interesting thing too. So digital with, I'm sure it's not as simple as this, but with the press of a key or the sharing of a link, provides an instant kind of communication of something beyond words. We can take a picture of what we're working on. We can share that with someone, but that interesting element about sharing the digital piece, especially if it's a work in progress, we can let people into that world so immediately, so intimately, that it's another way of having people be involved in our world, because the art we create is our world. So that is a beautiful, beautiful connection piece and a beautiful communication piece. Carlos, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And I caught that correction. Yes, autocorrect is an interesting thing in chat. I'm sure you're not alone in cursing that from time to time. Thank you for sharing that, Carlos. And I know, again, another that I don't know how other folks feel about this, but depending on the emotional place I find myself in, how I view my art changes. So I might not be as gentle or as compassionate or giving. and that I might perceive my art through a darker lens than I might normally if I was in a different mood state. So that note about holding on to just, reserving the mistakes, the things in our art that we're not so comfortable with. Because what is that? What do we mean when we say, oh, I made a mistake? Maybe it's ugly. We think it's ugly in that moment. Maybe, now I'm going to use watercolor with the chalk. Just water and see what happens. What do we mean when we say, oh, this was a mistake? Or I've screwed it up. I've screwed up my art. We're talking about a way we feel? Is that what we're talking about? A response we're having to what we've created? And I think just, hey, Nye, nice to see you. And Denise with the autocorrect had a hand in that. It's interesting, yeah. Is that like the Freudian slip? I don't know. All I know is that anyone who has had the pleasure of meeting Carlos, knowing Carlos in any way, knows that Carlos just brings beautifulness to anyone's life. Anyone's life. And the work he creates as well is lovely, honest, astonishing in its connectivity and its ability to communicate. It's lovely. So yes, so what do we mean when we make mistakes, right? What do we mean? Does it really suck? Or is it something in us telling us, take a break, step back, take a breath? And Peter, hey, Peter, welcome, welcome. Is Peter saying, he's coming on for a bit? So maybe Peter has to be somewhere else in a little while. And that's a great reminder for me to welcome anyone else who might be tuning into the live stream today. Thank you for being here. If you're here while it's live, please feel free to participate in the chat, share what you're working on, ask questions, share your thoughts. You don't have to, of course. You can just listen or watch or have us on in the background. But if you do want to engage in that chat, please feel free. And please don't feel like you have to stay the whole time. We do this every week, every Wednesday for about an hour and a half, from 2 to 3:30. But if you can only drop by for a few minutes, that's okay too. Take the time, do what feels right for you. But if you need to skip out or do other things with your day, that's okay too, right? This is time to connect, to hang out, to just enjoy being with one another. Or to enjoy being with yourself, with me keeping you company. So again, for those of you who experiment or explore chalk pastels, I always forget that you can manipulate them with water too. And they still have that they still create a base for the work you're doing. So later on, when it dries, you can come back and play with it. Add more chalk pastel layers on. But making mistakes in art. And falling in love with the mistakes you make. That's an important process. I hope everyone has an opportunity to experience that sometimes in your life with your work. But you only experience that if you let yourself make mistakes. And Peter's saying, glad to see you are drawing again. Oh, well, thank you. Good picture. Yes, thanks. It's like, that's a lovely judgment. But again, this is something that I'm not sure how I feel about right now. But thank you for sharing how you feel about it. And Peter's saying, I just need to do another class, so I can only drop in for a couple of minutes. That's okay. That's exciting. You're back. Are you back in school? Or are you training for something? That sounds really exciting. And Laura's saying, time for me to get M. Aw, say hello to Emily for me. Have a lovely afternoon, and thanks for being here. Hope to see everyone Saturday. So again, if you are in the area and you have works in progress to pick up, or would like to pick up some free art supplies of the things we're sharing with the community, you can drop by the studio from between noon and 3 p.m. Wear a mask, socially distance yourself from others, and we will have a table set up. You won't be able to come in the studio, but you can ask us for what you need, and we can share it with you if we have it. We're just going to try and manage it and be as safe as possible. Again, it's no use taking risks with anyone's health or wellness. Oh, and saying goodbye to Em, and lots of hugs going out Em's way. Oh, Carlos saying, my eyes are leaking now, Mary. Thanks for such kind words. Well, they're honest. They're just truth. The mistakes for me, for Carlos, are mistakes. For example, I was creating a very dark piece a few weeks ago, and the digital pen blipped. That's a whole other thing I hadn't thought about. So yes, the digital pen blipped and had a line that utterly changed the shape and feeling of the piece. So I left it, came back to it, and it sat with it. Yeah. The darkness of the piece kind of became a mix of darkness and color. It was very different. But for me, if I'd done it on paper, I may have crossed it off or thrown it out. Interesting. I kind of fell in love with what it became, and it resonated more than what I'd originally set out to create. Interesting. See that? I never think of I never think of that other, like as with any artistic medium, the fact that even with a digital paintbrush or pen, that it can do its own thing sometimes, take you to unexpected places. Never once occurred to me that that could be the case, but of course it is. Of course it can. And that the process of sitting with it, I think that's a real gift that art and making art, whatever kind of art you make, whether it's digital or analog, that's something that it can give us, can't it? It makes us, it asks us to sit with the process, to take our time, to be with it. And even if you're someone like me who really likes just doing things super speedily, right? Because I'm a very impatient person. But even then, it asks that we give ourselves space, a little bit of space. Because we know that things can't happen all at once. Things take time. Things have their own process that they go through. Art teaches us that. So when things don't work out, or when we need to wait for the paint to dry, hey, Momo, welcome. I think that's something, right? That's us kind of making, it's a contract between us and the artwork we're creating. A contract that says, give it time. Let it be. And what is difficult to sit with now might become something, given a few moments, a few minutes, a few days, that we return to and fall in love with. Or sometimes art is not about loving. Does that make sense? And Peter learning French. That's amazing. Oh, well, Peter, as you go, merci beaucoup for joining us. And enjoy your French class. That's as much French as I know, folks. Sorry, folks joining us from Quebec. Have a good French class, Peter. And Jen, for joining us. Hey, welcome. Yeah, that piece about sitting with your art. Sometimes what is meant to be something that feels perfect and right, something that your art is, you know, it's exactly what it needs to be. Doesn't always mean that it's beautiful, though, does it? Sometimes it's precisely the dark, precisely the ugly that needs to be said, and it can still even be beautiful within that. But yeah, and Emmett saying, often have trouble determining when my art piece is done. You're not the only one. All I really know is that I don't like making that determination by how long I've spent on it. Such an interesting process, isn't it? When is it done? Some artists say it's done when you walk away from it, that you never actually finish it. You just walk away and let it be. Of course, there are many examples of this in history, but one of my favorite, I wish I could remember who the artist was. If anyone is watching and knows the artist that I'm speaking of, please put it in the link. All I remember at this moment in time is there was an artist exhibiting at the Robert McLaughlin Gallery here in Oshawa. And so they'd collected pieces from various collections. And I think the story goes, if I'm remembering it correctly, that on the opening day before the event of this exhibit for this artist, he showed up, took a tour around, went out to his car, came back in with his art case, paints, brushes, palette, the whole works, and started adding to one of the paintings that was displayed for exhibit in the gallery. Now, this also brings up an interesting question of whose art is it once the artist creates it and lets it go. But the gallery, since this particular piece was owned in someone's personal private collection, they had to stop the artist from working on his own piece because it didn't belong to him anymore in that way. Interesting, huh? So when is it done? I don't know. But definitely the longer you spend on a piece doesn't determine its value or not. I think some of the most beautiful art out there is about just that feeling you might have, right? Oh, lovely. So folks in Montreal, Peter's just reminding me or letting us know here, if you are in Montreal, there's an art hive there that is closing its physical doors as well. They have to find a new home. So it's a St. Henri art hive, and they're also giving away stuff as well. So you can go to their Facebook page and learn more about that if you live in Montreal. And Ron Lambert, maybe? Anthony Granny says maybe, but I don't know. Was it Ron Lambert? Someone else can pick, throw in if you know who I'm talking about. It wouldn't surprise me if there were a number of artists that did this from time to time. It's just such an artist thing to do, isn't it? It's lovely. Because it's exploring, it's an experiment. And when is the experiment completed? I don't know. But that's another great reminder, Emmett, of that. I've been really reading a lot, sort of brushing up on contemporary art, which is hilarious because all art was once contemporary art. But that sort of conceptual art, or what we like to call, I suppose, modern art, things that are not, that have just as much to do with the thought behind the piece as the execution of the piece, if that makes sense. Yeah? Oh. So Jennifer saying, Mary, you live in a house that reminds me of ... What, Jen? What? Don't leave me hanging. Let me know what you're thinking of. It sounds like that could be the beginning of a poem. Petit L'Hermitage. Okay, that's awesome. Please share. Elaborate on that thought, please. That does sound like the beginning of a poem, Jen. Just to be fair, it sounds like that's the beginning of some exciting story. You live in a house that reminds me of. Assignment for everyone. Write a story about that, or a poem if you feel like. You live in a house that reminds me of. I want to do a workshop about that as well. Sorry, stream of consciousness here. I think I'd like to do a workshop about internal home places. Raise a hand if you might want to join me in a workshop like that. Maybe? I would do it in a Facebook room though. But it's been bubbling away, this idea of home places. And I think it fits in well to the conversation we're having today as well about experimenting, art as experiment. And almost like a process, a scientific kind of process that we can go through, each determining what measures we're using to gauge the success of that experiment. And Jen saying, oh, Versailles, what's her name? I don't know. Oh, Momo was saying yes, internal home place workshop. Yay! Okay. Oh, let's do a collab, Momo. I would really love that. Should I do a workshop? Well, let me know what that's like. And for folks who aren't familiar, there are so many other amazing virtual hives, virtual art hives just like this, or slightly different out there. If you haven't, I'm looking forward to having a little bit more time to experiment and try out those hives, meet new people, find more places to call home, more creative home places. And that's what art hives are, aren't they? I think it was Janice, or maybe Pat Allen. Janice? I think, where did I first hear this term? The creative home place, which is where I think this idea, the Queen of Versailles, Jen says. Oh my goodness, Marie Antoinette. Do I remind you of Marie Antoinette? I'm going to choose how I make meaning of that. And I'm going to take all the positive and none of the negative. Because I can. But please elaborate. Yeah, that idea of the creative home place, the public home place. So we don't necessarily have public home places in the same way that we used to. So what do we have then if we don't have a public home place? We have an internal home place. We have private home places. We have virtual home places. So I'd like to experiment and explore what those home places look like and how, if we don't have opportunities to connect outside of ourselves, knowing that we have a strong place to call home inside of ourselves. And what does that look like? I don't know. I don't know what that looks like. Well, folks, I was going to do, this always happens. I was going to do a couple of things today, and then I got caught up in doing my little, pen and ink chalk pastel / watercolor thing here. And then chatting with you about mistakes and experiments in art, and sitting with our art, and how that transfers into life. How art teaches us what art teaches us about life. What a beautiful thing, huh? Because I think in some cases, we might actually give ourselves more patience and more time, more loveliness with our art than we give ourselves. So perhaps if you have more patience and compassion with your process, your creative process, what can we learn about that and apply to our own lives? And if vice versa, you have more compassion and tolerance for yourself and all the things you do in real life, and your art, you're really crunchy. What can we do? What can we transfer from how we work with ourselves into that creative process so that we make room for beautiful mistakes and fantastic discoveries? Oh, lovely. Momo saying, reminds me of a poem. I will find it and put it in. You can put it in the feed or in the show and tell. I'll post sort of the pictures of what I'm doing here when it's done. And if you want to put the poem in the show and tell, that would be awesome, Momo. Oh, Momo, I have another question for you as well. So folks who are watching or maybe just tuning in, I shared an event that some of the Montreal Hives are doing involving a community altar for Day of the Dead. Now, Momo, I shared it hoping that people within our community might be able to participate as well. Can you confirm if that's the case? Can folks participate? We used to do a small art altar at the studio with Teresa Garcia's help. And it was such a beautiful thing, particularly, in all communities there's loss. But I think one of the things I love about that tradition and the ritual of Day of the Dead is, again, that idea of making meaning of things that we've been through, loss that we've experienced. Oh, my camera definitely does not like this line drawing. Here, let me add some color so it'll focus on something. Giving people an opportunity to honor that which they've lost and those that they've lost, and as much or as little as they feel comfortable, help other people learn a little bit about what they're like. So yes, Momo says, yes, everybody is welcome to participate. The more the merrier. And it's a beautiful thing. And also finding ways to, that, and again, for anyone who's experiencing, who's in that process right now, so many of us are in many interesting ways. But if you don't like any conversations about this loss or this grief, you feel free to, you can say bye-bye, or you can turn down the volume, whatever works for you. But something I love about Day of the Dead is that it gives us an opportunity to make meaning of those experiences and to honor and celebrate those in our lives that we've lost. And Momo, maybe you can answer this as well, because culturally it is not something within my culture. And I know Montreal has such a vibrant Latin community there. So, it's just a beautiful thing. Is it all right to honor things that we've lost that may not be human? So, because I think we bring meaning to so many different things. So if that doesn't make sense, hello, Amanda. Oh, thank you so much for joining us. And Jen saying, yes, Day of the Dead is such a beautiful holiday. Oh, okay. I'm going to hold my camera so people don't feel like they're going a little bit weird. I'm going to hold my hand up until I add more color to this piece, so the camera will focus on my hand. Here, I'll draw a little heart in my hand, so it'll focus on my hand. But in the past, I know on our altar at the studio, there we go. Oh yes, we also honor our pets. So thank you, Momo. And I wonder if there will be people who are also honoring, well, I think the spirit of different things. I mean, the studio isn't dead, so we can't say that it is past. because it is still here, but part of it has changed in such a way that we might, I wonder if we can honor the studios that are perhaps, that we're losing during this time as well. That might be an interesting thing. I don't know. Interesting. But yes, so if folks are interested in learning more about this process, you can visit, I shared the event on the Facebook page yesterday, so that would be Tuesday. And you can also, of course, visit the link within that to learn more. And you can email the art hives that are participating and ask any other questions you might have. And perhaps we can also talk to Teresa here, and Teresa can share a little bit more of the tradition and how Teresa incorporates it to her own life here. Teresa was always the person to take the lead with our altar in the studio. And oh, lovely. So Momo's saying, and probably this year we'll honor, as you say, the spirit of different things as well. So we can explore loss, but in ways that remind us of how the things or the people or the places or the pets we've lost are still with us, right? Yeah. Not for everyone. I totally understand that. But if this is something you might want to participate in, think about it. Let us know. All right. I'm going to put the lawn drying away because I tell you, when the camera's going wonky, it makes me feel a little weird. So I'm going to bring this back and hope that it's dry enough. Yes, so email us at La Colmina. We'll be doing skill shares and having conversations about this tradition. Fantastic, Momo. Can you put the link to your Facebook page there? And will you be having skill shares in English as well? Yes, so this tradition, the tradition of Day of the Dead, is celebrating, it's about celebrating life. And, well, life looks like a lot of different things, doesn't it? It looks and is a lot of different things. So what a beautiful thing. Thank you so much, Momo, for helping us understand a little bit more about the process. I'm really looking forward to taking part this year. Let's see, I'm going to add a little more chalk pastel. It's dry enough. Let's see. So it is. This is turning a little bit into a little peacocky kind of thing here. I'm liking it. And let's see. So if Momo wants to put up the link to the Facebook page, we might actually be able to see the thing. If not, I can post it afterwards in the show and tell as well. What do I want to do? Let me have a look at this. Let me have a look on the camera so I can get a, let's see. Let me have a close-up look, and then maybe if I look at it through the lens on the screen, something will jump out at me. It's like using a mirror. Has anyone used that with their artwork before? If you're making visual art and you hold it up in front of a mirror, it tricks your brain into seeing it in a slightly different way. Oh, Jen loves peahens and peacocks. Yes, so it looks like that's what I'm exploring. Huh. Yeah, I think I want a little more of what? Let's add a little here. Just a little something, something. Now, if you don't have chalk pastels at home, but you'd like to experiment with this kind of thing, as I was mentioning earlier, there are artists in our community who use makeup. They use different things like this to get that chalk pastel effect. But I think violet, Jen, maybe you're right. Oh, interesting. I think chalk pastels, you might even be able to find chalk pastels at places like dollar stores now. And we will have some chalk pastels. I know Amanda's out there, and Amanda, I think, was asking for some chalk pastels. We have some chalk pastels to share this Saturday too. So if you come by this Saturday between 12 and 3 to the studio, all safety measures in place, wear your mask, keep 2 meters apart from other folks, come prepared with some ideas of what you want or need, and if we have them, we can share them with you, okay? Yeah, I'm liking that. And Emmett, violet, violet, violet. So, where do I put the violet, huh? I put a little bit here. I think a little more. I guess that's more magenta than violet, isn't it? Let's see. That's kind of a purpley. Maybe a little bit there. That's a whole other conversation as well. How we see color and how do we know what color is, what color we're seeing. How is my red the same as your red? Has anyone ever experienced that before, where you look at something and you say, that's orange? And then the person you're with says, that is not orange. Many conversations we can have. Do, do, do. Oh, you folks are lovely. The lovely little compliments. Thank you. I don't want to use my fingers anymore. I want to get, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to use a little brush. I'm going to use a little brush to smooth out some of those. Let's see. Now there might be artists out there screaming at me. What are you doing? Don't use your brush to do that. But you know what? That's okay. It's my art. Oh. Just going to soften some of those edges a little bit. Just a little bit. And folks, whoa, 3:29. Thank you so much for joining me here, by the way, everyone. And just a reminder too that if you're watching once this has been archived, if you post questions or comments, I may not see them right away. So if I don't respond, that's probably why. Ooh, lapis robin's egg. Oh boy, wow, you guys are awesome. But thank you so much for joining me today. It's been really quite lovely to spend time with you and contemplate all these interesting things about the nature of art and creativity and why we create, how we create, the impact that it has on us. I love these conversations. And I'm so grateful for you taking time to have these conversations with me. If you're liking this, you're more than welcome to come back and visit next Wednesday. I'll be back here doing more. And I will keep in mind the things that Lottie asking for that marionette workshop. Now I might not get it strung, but I can definitely create the body with movable joints. I'm really excited about trying that out. And it will be entirely an experiment because remember, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just playing. I'm just experimenting with art. And I'm so very grateful that you're here along, taking the journey and experimenting with art too. And Momo's going to post a link for the studio, her studio, La Colmina. And yeah, if you're interested in participating in the Day of the Dead community altar, please check it out and learn more about it. And if not, that's okay too. And if you have any other suggestions about things you'd like to see me try here, please feel free to send them along as well. You can post them here or in the show and tell. I'll take a quick picture of this piece that I've been working on today just to use as a reference. And if you have been working on anything that you would like to share, please feel free to put up links, share photos, whatever you feel comfortable with, because it's your art, right? It's your communication to the world. Of course, work in process pictures are always welcome. Experiments, always welcome. You know, no perfection allowed. That's one thing that will stay. The studio space may be no longer, but wherever you are creating, wherever your personal studio may be, or your virtual studio may be, no perfection allowed. Just let yourself experiment. You never know what you'll discover. You never know what you'll fall in love with either. And Denise, some final thank yous and hellos and goodbyes. Oh, Denise, thank you. Saying thank you. It's been lovely for you too. I really enjoy watching you create and listening to your verbal explorations. And that's what this is, isn't it? An exploration. And it is fully informed by what people share with me. So thank you, Denise. Thank you, everyone, for contributing to this time and giving me a chance to create some community with you. Yeah? And now I think I need to go because I got to take my dog to a rehab appointment. Alice says hello to everyone, of course. But in the meantime, until we can connect and create with one another in person, I really look forward to creating and connecting with you here online. Oh, look at the lovely things. Yeah, so Carlos saying to everybody, it's been awesome. Thanks to everyone else for being here too, in whatever capacity. Stay safe, y'all, and remember what awesome works of art y'all are. Carlos is you're so good at this. Yes, all of us works of art. All works in progress too. Does that mean we're all experiments? I guess it does. Wonderful, beautiful experiments. And Jen saying, thanks, I feel so inspired again today. And if there's one thing I hope people walk away from this live stream with is that feeling of being a little inspired. Try something new. Experiment with your art. See what happens if you make a couple of mistakes and sit with it. Come back to it later. You might learn something. You might learn something about yourself. Okay, that's enough for me today. Thank you so much for joining me. I'll see you next Tuesday on Instagram where we'll be interviewing another virtual art hive that's out there for folks to participate in. And I'll see you again here on Facebook on Wednesday for another live stream. Love you all. Take care of yourself. Stay safe. And perhaps I'll see you on Friday night as well for the Q&A. If you would like to learn more about the process of closing the studio, what's coming up next for us, you can always join us at 7 p.m. this Friday, October the 16th, here on Facebook for a live stream kind of Ask Me Anything experience. Love y'all. See you soon. Take care. Stay safe. Bye.